The desert wind doesn't care who you were. It strips away medals, erases scars, and in Camp Hadith, it clings to the nameless. Like her. She stepped off the transport plane wearing a patchless uniform, boots half a size too big, and a medic's sling bag over her shoulder. No rifle, no insignia, no unit colors. Just a thin, short figure, barely 5 feet tall, with sun-worn skin and tired, unreadable eyes. Somewhere on the tarmac, a group of recruits whispered. One snickered, loud enough for her to hear. "What is she? A nurse's assistant? The Red Cross sent a mascot?" Another chimed in. "Maybe she's just here to hand out tissues when the real medics show up." They laughed. She didn't. The officer in charge barely looked at her. A clipboard flicked. Papers shuffled. "Corporal, Leila Yassir?" She nodded. "You were rerouted from logistics base, Kilo. No unit assignment, no combat clearance." He sighed, annoyed. "Well, I don't know what kind of mess-up put you here, but we've got our hands full training Tier 1 teams for Operation Glass Dagger. You'll stay on medical standby. Rear section. Keep quiet. Patch cuts. No heroics. Understood?" She nodded again. Then came the final cut. They issued her a cot outside the barracks, not inside. She might be unstable. Someone muttered. Word is she had a breakdown in Kuwait. No one asked her. No one dared look her in the eye. They only saw the surface. A small, silent Arab girl with faded wrists and a 1,000-yard stare. They didn't see Khafji, didn't smell the burning oil fields, didn't know she once stayed awake for 3 straight days, saving 6 men under mortar fire with nothing but torn bandages and stolen morphine. They didn't know the sniper shot she took that cracked her psyche in 2, the one that ended the siege and her career. Khafji was never in her file, classified. All they knew was, she's not combat ready. She's just a ghost in desert boots. She stayed silent. But she watched the cocky marksman from Unit Bravo miss 4 out of 10 at 600 meters. Watch the combat engineer flinch during night drills. Watch the tough guys guzzle caffeine pills like candy because they couldn't sleep with the sandstorm howling. She watched, and she remembered. Every breath, every wind shift, every subtle tremor in the ground. But when she offered help, they brushed her off. "Stay in your lane, Doc. Go fold some gauze or something. Khafji broke you, right? Not your fault." They never said it to her face. But the tone, the mock sympathy masked as kindness, cut deeper than direct insult. Until one night, a training accident. Live fire drill gone wrong. A charge detonated early. 1 man down, artery hit, blood pumping out like a geyser. Everyone panicked. Med team, 8 minutes out. But she was already moving. Her hands didn't shake. She dropped to her knees beside the bleeding soldier, clamped the wound, reached for her sling bag, and froze. It wasn't there. They'd taken it. Someone in the barracks thought it was funny to toss her gear during a prank. She looked up. Eyes locked with the Bravo unit's leader, a tall, broad-shouldered captain named Harrow. "Do something!" he barked. She replied flatly. "I would, if you hadn't let your men hide my gear." Silence. Then she ripped her own sleeve, shoved it into the wound, twisted it tight with a bootlace, and muttered, 7 minutes to clot, 4 to consciousness. You've got 3 to get out of my way. They obeyed. For the first time. But that didn't change anything. The next morning, her cot was soaked from a busted pipe. Deliberately. Someone left a toy stethoscope on her desk. A message scrawled in Sharpie, "Dr. Barbie saves the day." She said nothing, filed no complaint. But in the privacy of the empty range, she started shooting again. A guard once said he heard it. 10 rounds, all headshots, windy night, no misses. But no one ever saw her practice. Only the bullet holes, tight as a heartbeat, neat as a surgeon's cut. And then came the drill. A surprise red alert simulation. Every unit split. No comms, just survival. Except the enemy force wasn't a drill team. It was a rogue element, ex-militia scavengers that hijacked the scenario and made it real. Shots were fired. People were hit. And somehow, the quiet little medic ended up alone, with 2 injured rookies, 1 rifle, and a high ridge between her and the evac point. She looked down at the weapon. Finger on the trigger. The ghosts of Khafji behind her eyes. She whispered, "No more bandages," and stood up. The ridge was steep. Sand slid beneath her boots. Every step felt like walking into a grave. But Leila didn't stop. Behind her, 2 wounded rookies bled into the earth, barely conscious, breathing shallow. One had shrapnel near the spine, the other had a collapsed lung. They wouldn't survive if she didn't clear a path. She lay flat against the dune's edge. Her fingers brushed the rifle. Standard issue, scratched up, not zeroed for her. But she didn't need calibration. She needed silence. Stillness. She slowed her breathing, counted heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. Then, movement. 3 enemy silhouettes, not simulation gear. Real rifles, real intent. She adjusted her grip. This wasn't new. She'd done this before, in Khafji. There, she once held position alone, across 43 hours of sandstorm and gunfire, covering an entire withdrawal by memory and wind speed. She could still hear the voice of her old spotter. Gone now. You don't shoot until the wind exhales. That's when bullets listen. She waited. The desert breathed. She squeezed. Crack! The first man dropped before he heard it. The second turned. Too late. The third panicked, fired wild, then fell clutching his throat. 3 shots, 3 kills, all center mass, through fog and heat shimmer. She exhaled only once, then crawled back down. The rookies stared up at her, pale, disbelieving. You're not just a medic, are you? One mumbled. She didn't answer. She just bandaged tighter, lifted both on makeshift stretchers, and dragged. Through thorns, through shell-pitted ground, through one more ambush, which she cleared without breaking stride. By the time reinforcements found them, she was covered in dust and blood. None of it hers. Her lips cracked from dehydration. Her pulse calm. A major crouched beside her. "Who trained you?" he asked, eyes narrowing. She blinked slowly. "Field Medic, Logistics Command." The major didn't believe her, but he didn't press either, because behind her, 3 dead enemies, 2 living soldiers, and 1 rifle with a melted barrel. That night, the whispers changed. In the barracks, Bravo Squad sat in silence as their leader, Captain Harrow, replayed helmet cam footage. 1 shot, 2, 3, all kills, from 300 meters, in a sandstorm. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. This isn't standard. You don't just pick this up on the weekend. No one spoke. Then a soft voice from the back. "I heard she used to be Tier 0. Everyone turned. The rumor spread fast. She was in Khafji. She went dark for months after the siege. They buried her file. She cracked and started seeing things. That's why they shelved her. But none of it matched what they saw on the screen. Not madness, not panic, just perfect control. Days passed. She was reassigned to medical triage, but guards started showing up during her night shifts. Not to harass her, but to watch. Some came with questions. Most just stood silently, unsure how to apologize for what they'd said before. Captain Harrow didn't speak to her. Not until a week later, during a convoy recon mission, his driver took a round to the neck. She was riding in the last vehicle, supposed to just observe. But she ran, fast, no cover, no hesitation. She got to the driver, yanked him out, turned the artery, sealed it in 11 seconds flat. Later, Harrow pulled her aside. "You ever think about going back to combat?" She looked away. "Combat doesn't want me." That night, the major called a classified review. He pulled her old dossier, the one marked SEAL Med Red Level, Khafji Psi Evil Locked. It showed things most soldiers weren't supposed to see. A field op where she volunteered to hold a rooftop solo for 50 hours. 19 confirmed sniper kills from unknown distances. One rescue under artillery fire that saved an entire forward command post. And the note at the bottom: medically discharged due to visual hallucinations post-trauma. No record of breakdown ever substantiated. Subject chose silence. He read it twice, then looked at her across the table. "You never told anyone." She shrugged. "They wouldn't have listened." But someone had been listening. "Bravo, squad!" One by one, they started treating her differently. Not like a mascot. Not like a joke. They didn't know how to talk to her. She barely spoke. But they nodded. Left coffee for her during night watch. Stopped making noise during her shifts. And when the base sniper pulled a hamstring during range week, they asked her to take the shot. She said no. But that night, they found a paper target posted at 900 meters. 10 shots, all inside the center circle, signed with a single word: Khafji. She didn't want recognition. She wanted peace. But something was changing inside her. The quiet didn't hurt as much. The flashbacks faded. In the stillness of the night range, she wasn't broken anymore. She was rebuilding. But peace never lasts long at Camp Hadith, because 2 weeks later, Operation Glass Dagger launched early. And her unit, the same one that mocked her, was dropped into a kill zone. Without backup. Pinned, surrounded, bleeding. And the only one left on base with both medical clearance and sniper skill was her. She stood in the armory, looked at the rifle rack, then down at her old dog tags. They still said logistics, but her hands remembered Khafji. She whispered, "They won't die alone," and stepped into the fire, one last time. Operation Glass Dagger had gone sideways. What was meant to be a precision night raid turned into a bloodbath by noon. Extraction failed. Air support grounded by a sandstorm. Communications jammed. And somewhere in Sector 9, Bravo Squad, the same unit that once laughed behind her back, was pinned, outnumbered, and fading fast. They had no medic, no overwatch, no hope. Until someone picked up movement on base perimeter cameras. A small figure, light pack, walking alone toward the fire zone. Leila Yassir, wearing no rank, carrying a suppressed M110 and a medic's pouch duct-taped to her leg. Command didn't approve it. She didn't wait. Just left a note behind. "I'll bring them home, or I won't come back." She moved fast, cutting through heat waves and ravines, avoiding drones, ducking gunfire that wasn't supposed to be there. Tactical doctrine said she should wait for reinforcements. She ignored it. She wasn't a doctrine anymore. She was the correction. By the time she reached the outskirts of the combat zone, Bravo was down to half strength. Captain Harrow was bleeding from a shoulder hit. 2 others unconscious. The rest holed up in a shell of a building with ammo running low and no medevac in sight. She climbed the southern ridge. Dug in. Built her own nest with sand, broken steel, and an old tarp. Then waited. She watched through her scope. 3 hostiles circling from the east. Another 4 crawling through debris to flank. She blinked once. Wind 6 knots, eastward. Elevation 12 meters. Range 820 meters. Too far for a guarantee. She fired anyway. Crack! Crack! The first went down, face first. Second stumbled, dropped. Third turned, looked around, and took one in the throat before he could blink. 4 more ran for cover. Too late. She shifted right, adjusted elevation, and pulled again. Precision, control, no mercy. The ghosts of Khafji weren't ghosts anymore. They were instinct. They were muscle memory. They were survival. Bravo Squad didn't know who was saving them. They just knew the enemy kept dropping before they could aim. Until one soldier, Gonzalez, spotted the silhouette on the ridge. "That's her," he whispered. Harrow stared through his own binoculars. Small figure, no comms, one rifle, unshakable aim. He lowered the glass. "That's Leila." Someone laughed. Not mockingly this time. Guess Dr. Barbie's got claws. No one laughed after that. They watched, in awe. She kept them alive for 6 hours. Alone, rationing shots, switching position every 2 kills, patching herself with a sewing kit when shrapnel tore her arm. At one point, a drone hovered above. She took it down with a single shot, through the lens. Someone at command finally asked, "Who the hell trained this woman?" Another answered, "No one. She is the training they wrote manuals about." But even Leila was human. At sunset, a second wave pushed through the north. She was out of water, nearly out of ammo, body trembling. She saw one last group, 6 men, heading for Bravo's last holdout. Too many for her to snipe, too close for range. So she stood, walked downhill, no cover, no backup. She reached into her med pouch and pulled out not a bandage, but a flare. Snapped it. Red light burned through the air. The enemy paused, confused. She raised her rifle. One last shot, straight through the lead attacker. Then she dropped the gun, pulled a knife, and ran into the fight. Close quarters chaos. She moved like wind and lightning. 2 down with a sweep. Another disarmed. A blade across the knee, a kick to the throat. Blood sprayed her face. She didn't blink. The last 2 opened fire. She ducked, rolled, jammed a combat syringe into one neck, knife into the other. Silence. Then boots behind her, guns drawn. Not enemies, Bravo Squad. They had broken through the last barricade, following her flare. And what they found was their forgotten ghost, kneeling in a ring of blood, arms soaked, chest rising slowly. Captain Harrow stepped forward, eyes wide. "Oh, Leila." She looked up. "I held them." They didn't speak again until the evac chopper came. On board, a medic tried to treat her. She waved him off. "Start with the captain," she said, nodding at Harrow. He tried to argue. She just stared at him, and he stopped. The rest of the flight was silent. Everyone staring at her. Not with fear, not with pity. With respect. She closed her eyes. Not to forget, but to remember. At base, command debriefed her. Tried to ask why she disobeyed orders, why she went alone, why she used classified sniper technique without clearance. She said nothing, until the general in charge leaned in. "Khafji was 8 years ago. You had a medical out. Why come back now?" Her voice barely a whisper. "Because I couldn't forget the sound of someone dying while no one moved." They offered her reinstatement. She declined. But when Bravo formed a new recon unit, they added a special request. Sniper Overwatch, Unit Ghost, codename Khafji. She didn't answer officially. But the next night, someone left a new paper target at 1,000 meters. 10 shots, center mass. No signature. Just one word scribbled in black ink. "Still watching." They tried to give her medals, but she never showed up to the ceremonies. They sent citations. She sent them back unsigned. She didn't need decorations. She didn't need speeches. She needed quiet. She needed distance from the myths they were starting to tell. Yet the story of Leila Yassir, the medic who moved like shadow and shot like myth, refused to fade. At the training grounds, recruits whispered about her. "She's not on the roster, but she's still watching us." Some say she trains alone at night. You can hear the shots after midnight. They say she never misses, even in wind. Some thought she was a ghost. Some thought she never existed at all. But Bravo Squad knew better. They didn't tell stories. They kept silent loyalty. And every time they deployed, they'd leave a space in the formation. Empty. For her. Captain Harrow changed too. Once the loudest voice in the squad, he now spoke in clipped orders and calm tones. He rewrote Bravo's sniper doctrine. Taught new units the Khafji rule. One shooter, one breath, one purpose. He said it came from an old ghost who saved his life. No one dared laugh. Leila never returned to a full squad. But when glass cracked across Sector 14 and a recon team vanished under fire, she was already moving. No orders, no permission. Just a rifle, a pouch, and a name scrawled on a crumpled ops board. Khafji tracking solo. When they found the missing team days later, alive, barely wounded, no one asked how. But near the evac zone, carved into a rock with a combat knife, were the words, "Next time hold your line, I won't always be there." She became a symbol, not of vengeance, not of rage, but of the quiet ones, the soldiers with wounds too deep for paperwork, the ones who returned not for glory, but because no one else would. Her legend grew not by stories, but by the silence she left behind. A rifle round buried in the sand. A patient stitched perfectly, even in chaos. A flare that blinked red above the desert, followed by falling enemies no one ever saw. One day a new commander arrived. Young, sharp, fresh from officer school, full of theory. He reviewed base records and frowned. "Who keeps logging supply requisitions under the name Khafji? There's no such operative." Captain Harrow met his eyes, held his stare, and simply said, "You're new, you'll learn." But not everyone forgot her name. A boy in Echo Squad once asked, "Why does our medkit have one black thread instead of red?" His sergeant grinned. "That's a Leila knot. Stronger under pressure. Taught to us by someone who never should have been teaching." Another recruit asked, "Why do we fire between heartbeats during sniper drills?" The answer came from a weathered corporal. "Because that's when bullets listen. That's when she listened." Years passed. New wars, new soldiers, new ghosts, but every time a unit went silent, or a mission was considered suicide, someone would whisper, "Maybe Khafji's watching." And sometimes, just sometimes, a flare would light the sky. A shot would crack across impossible distance, and the lost would be found. She never returned to rank. She worked in base clinics between deployments, tended to burns, treated fevers, never spoke of what she'd done, never used the name Corporal Yassir again. But Bravo knew where to find her. One by one, they came to her tent. Not for healing, but for grounding. To talk, to breathe, to say simply, "You kept us alive." She never replied, just poured tea, stitched a torn glove, cleaned her scope. One winter, she vanished. No trace, no transfer order, just a folded note left under a crate of morphine. No more war, just watching now. Some say she crossed the border to run clinics for displaced civilians. Others say she trains women in distant valleys, teaching them how to shoot between heartbeats. Some swear they saw her on a mountainside during an op that never made the reports. But no one can prove it, because Leila Yassir was never meant to be known. She was built in blood, broken by silence, and reborn in ashes, the ashes of Khafji. Final line, narrated slowly over fade to black. Some heroes wear medals, others wear silence, and some wear the dust of Khafji on their boots, long after the war forgets them.